security concerns ahead of New Year's celebrations. A faction of al-Qaeda is reportedly calling for plane hijackings and suicide attacks in New York City, including the subway system. U.S. intelligence agencies have been warning of possible lone wolf attacks surrounding celebratory gatherings. CBS's Tom Hansen takes a look at how the NYPD is stepping up security.
We know how to safeguard events of this size.
4, 3. An estimated 1 million revelers will descend on New York City's Times Square on Sunday to ring in 2024.
Happy New Year!
Thousands of New York police officers will be watching the crowds from the ground and the air. A massive effort to keep one of the biggest New Year's Eve parties on the planet safe.
You break the law, you're going to have to deal with the New York City Police Department.
Large and sometimes heated protests have become a daily event in the city, disrupting other events like the Thanksgiving Day Parade and Rockefeller Christmas tree lighting.
How concerned are you that the same thing will happen again for New Year's Eve?
It's not going to be tolerated. It's not going to be accepted.
A recent law enforcement bulletin obtained by CBS News warns of a likely heightened threat of violence through the holidays, including at large gatherings like New Year's Eve celebrations.
We will have our officers out here in uniform and in plain clothes.
New York City Police Chief Jeffrey Madry says law enforcement is stepping up security from last year. The city has also increased the buffer zone around Times Square, putting more space between potential protesters and revelers.
And if people want to come out and protest and raise their voice, they'll be able to do it in a safe manner as well.
And law enforcement is especially concerned about those lone actors. Mayor Adams says the city is paying close attention to online chatter in hopes that everyone attending the ball drop can ring in the new year safely. Major?
Coming to us from Times Square, Tom Hansen, thank you.
Sandra, 483 protests, say city leaders, since Hamas fired rockets into Israel on October 7th. And as you know, many of those protests happened in high visibility, high profile areas. You don't get much more highly visible than what happens here on New Year's Eve. And for that reason, the mayor says this year's security concerns reach a whole new level.
It's a real Herculean task.
That executive summary came today from Mayor Eric Adams regarding the monumental effort to maintain safety and security, law and order during the annual spectacle that is New Year's Eve in Times Square. As a former police officer, the mayor knows New York's finest will have a finely tuned law enforcement strategy for the high-profile and densely populated party at the crossroads of the world. But unlike other years, the war in the Mideast and the nearly 500 protests since October 7th all add another layer of concern.
You're seeing a small pocket of people who are now becoming part of the protest, who are really trying to rile up the crowd, and we cannot tolerate that. We can't accept it.
Just yesterday, police arrested half a dozen people at a protest near the Rockefeller Center tree. The mayor said he's sure protesters will try to do the same on New Year's Eve. In fact, posts on social media already point to a December 31st shut it down day of action.
I'm not a betting person, but I think it's a pretty safe bet that someone is going to try to do something to distract or disrupt the events in Times Square.
Unrest as far as raising awareness and fighting for what they believe in. Obviously, I support their cause personally. I don't believe that it's going to make much of a difference as far as the level of security that they're going to bring up here.
As for the camera-toting tourists and party-loving revelers in Times Square, we heard little about fear of trouble on the final night of 2023. At the same time, they'll be watching from the comfort of home.
We've been through this before, even after 9/11, and again, I think that the police department is watching it very carefully, and I do have confidence in them. So.
Now, police have a strategy. Protesters, though, often have their own strategy, and sometimes that involves an initial distraction followed by a greater, more widespread action. The mayor today said police are totally aware of that and will not be caught off guard after Action 1 and ahead of Action 2.
More than 400,000 people are expected to flock to the Strip and Fremont Street for the New Year's Eve celebration. Thank you so much for joining us on Channel 13, live at 6 tonight. I'm Trisha Keene.
And I'm Joe Mueller. And with that huge crowd comes an increased law enforcement presence that is necessary to help manage the crowd and all the road closures. Now, Ryan Ketchum spoke with local first responders and joins us live from the Strip. And Ryan, how many officers will be out on the Strip come Sunday?
Metro did not tell us the exact number of officers that are going to be out on the Strip and in downtown Las Vegas, but they did say that bomb squad, hazmat crews, fire services, and even the National Guard will be out here to help them manage the massive crowds on New Year's Eve.
The reason we don't answer that is because we don't want to give anybody any idea of what the deployment actually looks like, but very few people will not be working on New Year's Eve.
And officers want to reassure the public that they aren't just focusing their attention on the Strip in downtown Las Vegas. They will have personnel available to respond to calls all around the valley.
We'll still have our normal fires, our normal EMS, the normal resources, and they will be available to do that.
First responders are asking for your help to make the city's New Year's Eve celebration safe.
We responded to roughly about 1,400 calls just between the period of 6 o'clock p.m. last year on New Year's Eve until about 2 o'clock in the morning.